So welcome everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me. We are so delighted that you are tuning in with us on this evening. We have an engaging conversation that we are bringing to you. We are the Upsilon Epsilon Omega chapter, and we're so grateful that you have joined in for this critical conversation entitled Start Young, Start Local, Getting Civically Engaged. This is a conversation. So we are, again, so delighted that you are joining us this evening. This is a community discussion. Our audience is our students, our young people, and it is to carry out the mission and the motto of what we are here to do. That is to uplift and empower our community. The mission of our chapter, the Upsilon Epsilon Omega chapter, is to empower and make a difference in the lives of those in need in the Baltimore County area of Maryland. Our mission is achieved through the execution of Alpha Kappa Alpha, Sorority Incorporated's international and local programs of service, and by fulfilling the purpose of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Our motto of our chapter is uplifting and empowering others and uplifting and empowering ourselves. And so we want to ensure that you are informed, that we are informed. There is a lot at stake this year. We're not telling you at all how to vote. We're telling you to be informed. And so this evening, we have some wonderful panelists who are going to be speaking with you about some critical discussions and how to be engaged. On behalf of Upsilon Epsilon Omega chapter, I bring you greetings and I welcome you. My name is Kendra Brown. I am the president of Upsilon Epsilon Omega chapter. Highlights of the work that we do in serving our community are ensuring that we are providing food. We have food insecurity programs through our Target 5 of our international program. We have an upcoming women's health conference that is happening the first Saturday in October. That's through our Target 2. That's our health and wellness target. There's so many amazing things that we're doing in our community, and we are just, again, grateful that you are with us this evening for our AKA Connections series.
So now I'll be followed by Ms. Breché Wells, who will take over as our moderator. Go ahead, Cheryl.
All right, thank you very much, Crystal. So we're going to start our conversation. I'm really excited about it. There's a couple questions that we have for our panelists. So we will start with the first question, and that question is, why is voting, especially in the 2020 election, so important? And panelists, you can kind of just jump in as you have an answer prepared. That's fine.
Okay, I wouldn't mind going, Breché. We believe that youth voice and everybody's voice is important. And we don't think that everyone understands how important it is. You know, I don't think that a lot of times we hear people say that they don't think their vote counts. But we always like to reiterate for everyone to understand that that's the only thing that makes the playing field equal, is that our vote equal. We all have one vote. So those celebrities that we look up to or that we think about, and those people that may have a different amount of money than majority of us or some of us, they all have one vote. So for us, it's just understanding that you have power and that you control a lot with just that one vote and with your voice, and that's why voting is important.
Thank you, Ms. Thorough. That was an excellent answer. Do any of our other panelists want to join in on that question?
Yes, so it's very important for young people to vote, not just 2020, because every 4 years we come up with new ideologies where we say that this is the most important vote. Let me tell you, it's been the most important vote since we were able to vote, especially as Black people. And I would just say this to my young people, just think of the word inheritance, right? Whether you like it or not, there is an inheritance of many different issues and many different solutions that this nation and the world is facing. And it's up to you to use your vote to work towards the things that we are inheriting. Because whether you like it or not, these things are coming from those who made decisions for you. So in a time where you can make decisions for yourself, you have to use your voice and your option to opt into your inheritance, to make a difference towards your inheritance. So that's why it is very, very pivotal to vote, especially in these trying times, not only with a global pandemic, but in a time where the world looks a little different. So it's very, very, very imperative that every young person uses their vote and know that it doesn't only count, but it counts bigger for those who are around them in this time. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that point. I always think about to the 2016 election, and a lot of my peers who were so confident in the results of what was going to happen that they chose not to vote. And obviously when the results came out, they were upset. And so in this election, I always emphasize to my peers, especially those in college, because it's always a lot of the college students who are always hesitant in voting because either they're too confident or they just feel as though their voices don't matter. And so me, you know, as a sophomore in college, I was explaining to my peers that, you know, we campaign and advocate on all these issues about lower tuition, better access to resources for college students. And what a lot don't realize in these elections, you're also not just voting for the president and the vice president, you're also voting for a lot of these local positions that people don't realize have such big influence on where the money goes, how these budgets are allocated. And so what makes the 2020 election so important is not just the presidential election, but also local elections and who you're electing to local office. And that's what I emphasize to my peers often is that you're not just voting for the person in 600 Pennsylvania Avenue, you're voting for who is going to represent you in your specific districts and how they're going to allocate money for you and your peers in your schools and your colleges. That's why I always emphasize that this election is so important because of that, because now that a lot of college students are in this transitioning into this real world, they're realizing that past generations haven't helped us a lot. And so now they're realizing, okay, what more can I do? And I say, cast your vote. That's what makes it so important. And that's what helps you decide your future.
I'm going to add really quickly. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, my computer just shut down. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I'm glad I had it back up. For my cell phone, I'm really honored to be with this prestigious group of people who do this work every single day. And we know how important elections are, not just like my brother said, through the presidential elections, but also every single year. I'm going to give y'all really quickly 2 things and 2 reasons why elections are important. And again, I know we try to pontificate why elections are important every time. The first reason is this year we're going to see an increase in young people who are eligible to vote this year. Generation Z and the millennials make up together 37% of the electorate, which means that we have now outgrown the silent generation. So I tell my young people at the NAACP and across the country, if we wanted to change police brutality and we could put it on the ballot right now, we would win because we'd all be able to go vote at the same time and we have the numbers and the powers to make the difference in the change. If we wanted to make college education free, we could do it in the swipe of 1 vote because we are 37% of the electorate. If we wanted to cancel student loan debt, we could do it overnight if we really wanted to. If we wanted to make sure that everybody had free healthcare and that we didn't discriminate based off of people's income, background, zip code, or ability, we'd be able to get that. If we wanted to make sure that every single person across the country had a good paying job and benefits and got paid for maternity leave and sick leave and paid vacation, we are now in the position where young people are able to make those decisions because we are the largest electorate. We are 37% of the electorate. And the second reason is this: those 37% of people, including myself, because I'm 31, the millennials and Generation Z, we are not only more diverse, and let me be very specific because people like to use the word diverse and not be specific. The electorate, the whole electorate, is less white. Less white, 1. 2, it's more educated. Our electorate are folks who are not just people who are graduate holders, but also folks who've actually been to school, right? The third thing is also, and this might be a surprise why I'm saying this on panel, but I want to uplift it because folks may or may not know, that it's also more Latino and Latinx and Spanish speaking, the electorate. It is, our brown brothers and sisters have outnumbered our Black brothers and sisters in the electorate this year. So when we talk about Black and brown solidarity and the connection between what brown folks are going through or what Black folks are going through, now is the time more than ever for us to pull ourselves together and say, what is our collective community agenda? Because we can pass that bad boy on November 3rd, 2020. It is not about a presidential candidate. It is not about just ballot initiatives. Like everybody else has said, this is about the inheritance that we want to have before us, but also necessarily this is also about the footing and the stepping compass that the country now needs to go, considering where we've been and where we're at right now. So I'm looking forward, because I think that people like to talk about young folks like they need to force us to come out and vote. I operate with a different group of young people. I don't know what young people y'all talking to, but the young people that I talk to aren't excited to vote, but they know that it is necessary to turn out on November 3rd.
Thank you, panelists. That was very robust and excellent. Before we move on, we had a question in our Q&A, and I just wanted to read it out real quick. This question came from Jennifer. She says, voting is important because it is something that the generations before us fought for. We should exercise the right. In order to see change in our country, we, and she put it in capital letters, have to be the change. We have to teach our young adults the same thing. We cannot complain about what is going on in this country if we do not use our voice. And I just thought that that was excellent to say, because myself, I am an educator and I teach high school, and I've taught middle school as well. And I think it's very important to, like Jennifer kind of just said, we have to teach our young adults, like, really what is, I don't want to use the word expected, but to a certain extent expected of them. You know, once you become of age to vote, it's your right to do so. And I think that they should take it very serious. And I think that parents and community leaders should be very inspiring to them and give them a heads up about it before they turn of age to vote. You know, when they're 5, when you're old enough to understand what's going on in the world, it needs to be a conversation. So again, I want to thank you panelists for that robust conversation as we move on to the next question. And that question is, what is the value of utilizing your voice? And again, panelists, you can just unmute yourself and jump in as you feel.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, the question was, what is the value of utilizing your voice?
I would say the value is part of, like Ms. Loftin said, it's about understanding what's necessary and understanding what's at stake for you, and not just for you, but being able to understand the impact that you have around others and how we're all connected together in our way of life. So I think it's more so for all of us, not just young people, right, to really realize the power of like how we live, how we live and what our values are so connected to each other, and how are so connected to each other in every way, right? It impacts everything about it. So that it impacts us with money. It impacts us what you watch on TV. It impacts what, you know, the lighting in your neighborhood. It impacts the streets. It impacts the schools. It impacts what you wear. It impacts all of those things, right? It impacts, you know, how many Black business owners we do have and Black companies we have. It impacts what type of groceries you have, where you have grocery stores. It impacts how far you have to walk somewhere. It impacts if you're allowed to work at a young age or at a certain place. It impacts if you're allowed to work from home, like right now, right? It impacts health. We have people who are dying all over the country, all over the world. And some of the things that have been brought to light, I don't think that people have realized like how much or how important those things were, and realize how much of an influence and power we had over those things before we were put into the situation that we're in today due to COVID. So I think that people just don't understand or realize how important or how much power we have. Which equates voice to me, you know, which equates voice, and we don't understand that. So I think that that's part of the challenge. I don't want to say the problem, but part of the challenge, although it is a problem in some ways, but it's a challenge in so many ways and so many layers that we don't understand the layers, right? We don't understand the layers until we get in it, right? And then sometimes when we get in it, people think that it's too late, and it's not too late. I'm with Ms. Loftin. Like, I don't know what young people, they might not be excited because they may feel intimidated or because they may feel like they don't know. But I want young people to know, and older people to know, that it's nothing to be intimidated by, right? Because it's real life. This is all real life. And all the policies and everything that we're voting on is connected to your real life and the people that you care about, real life, and all of us. So that's my comment.
I was going to say, agreeing with my sister, I think we minimalize the word voice. I think I've always viewed a voice as an instrument. So I'm gonna go very, very Afrocentric real quick. Like, do we understand that our voice was a power like that woke up nations and how we communicated? Look at our Constitution in this country. First Amendment is the freedom of speech. Speech coming from where? Your mouth, your voice. It's powerful. In the Christian church, we say what? Speak it into existence. I don't think people put the power on the voice. And I think that is an issue. That's why we should treat our voices like instruments, because that's exactly what they are. And the thing about your voice is that even if it's minimal in your mind, if somebody heard your voice, you can inspire the person. So even if you are not the change agent, your voice, the spittle from your voice, the sound from your voice can vibrate and speak something into somebody else who might actually make the change. And that is the whole point of voting. Your voice in that vote, in that candidate who will speak the change for you. So they go hand in hand.
I ain't got nothing to say after that. That was perfect. I actually feel more empowered with my voice, and I thought I knew what I was doing. That's it.
I just wanted to add, from a perspective of being a young person, I think it's so important because I think oftentimes when you are a teenager, you think that when you're surrounded by all these adult voices, you feel as though you're drowned out in all that noise and you feel like you're at the kids' table. And when you're first at this adults' table, you feel like your voice isn't as important. But what I've realized is that if you speak your mind and you speak your heart, you'd be surprised as to how much people actually listen to it and take what you have to say seriously, and take that into their decision making. I realize that a lot when working with members on the Board of Ed, working with the superintendent and other elected officials, how much your voice can be taken into consideration if you speak your voice passionately and you speak with conviction. So absolutely, it's important, I think, for any young person who feels as though their voices might be drowned out to not feel that way, but to just feel empowered when you do that, and speak with your heart and speak with your mind when doing so.
I wanted to jump in really quickly with what Ruben said, and I work in education too, but I wanted to make sure that not just young people, but everyone understands that voice doesn't mean literal voice. It doesn't have to mean your literal voice, right? It's the way of you being able to express and advocate for yourself and advocate for others in whatever way is most easiest and in a way that's your truth, right? So it's about your voice really just means about speaking your truth and advocating for you and the others around you. And that can be done in a variety of ways, especially the world that we're in today and how we are now. And we are in this place of being able to accept youth expressing or sharing their voice in a variety of ways because of youth just being able to be themselves and people being able to understand that it's okay to be yourself and to be able to understand what's important to you as a person or as an individual. So I just wanted to be able to share that, not just for our younger people, but for our older people, because I know sometimes our older people get stuck too because they think that certain things shouldn't be said or shouldn't be done a certain way or you shouldn't do certain things. But we're in a time today where any way that you say it or any way that you show it is okay, and let's not focus on voice meaning a literal voice at all times.
Can I
that was great.
Can I add three pennies real quick?
Yes,
I'm gonna add 3 pennies real quick. So because it just came to me, there's this famous superstar who said, "With great power comes great responsibility." That was Spider-Man. And when we're talking about voice, y'all made me think about how we're referencing voice as something individual that each one of us has, which is absolutely true. But in the work that I do, I also make sure to put the responsibility, the great responsibility, on each of us to remember that when we walk into the ballot booth, we are not just voting for ourselves, though. We're voting for our communities, we're voting for our families, and we're voting for folks who actually don't have the right to vote. So even though every single one of us might have a voice, we all don't have the agency. And so there are folks, like I have friends who have been incarcerated, whose rights for suffrage have been stripped from them. I have folks who are undocumented, both Black, brown, and everybody else, who are also not able to vote. I have a friend right now who is applying for a citizenship status this year, but his meeting in January got canceled, and so because of the coronavirus, and so now he's been delayed, and his new date is after the voter registration day. So he was really hoping to vote this year, but he won't be able to. And so we have to remember, right, that when we're going to use our voice is so powerful. I love how you were like, okay, I'm gonna bring the Afrocentric piece, but our voice is so powerful, not only because we have the agency and power to use it, but because we also are able to speak life for other people. And so I want us to remember that we can't go into the booth selfish. We can't go into the vote, and also this, we don't want other people to go into the booth selfish, right? Like, I don't want other people to go into the booth and vote for things against my own interests as well. So we have to be able to reconcile the community of voices together, and remember that collective power is how elections move, not based on our individual voices.
I want to say preach.
I wasn't gonna say nothing to the question because it was so good. But
one more thing for everybody to understand, right? And I just had this conversation with a friend when we were in Detroit this weekend. And it was pretty much, he was like, I can't vote. And I was like, why can't you vote? And he was like, because I'm a felon. And I said, that's not true. In the state of Maryland, yes, you can. So I just want to make sure that everybody right now, make sure that you're checking your status. Check your voting status, whether you are a regular voter and you need to make sure that your address and everything is updated. Check your status and make sure that you check your status, especially for your friends who may feel like they've been incarcerated before and they may not know or may not feel confident or may feel comfortable. I had a neighbor during the primary election text me and inbox me on Instagram and said, hey, I just had a question. Can they vote? And I said, yes. If you don't walk with that young man to the polls and let him know that he can walk in right now and the same day and register. So please make sure that you spread the word for everybody to check their status and definitely check the state law. So no matter where everyone is, to let them know that that most likely they can vote. And in the state of Maryland, a convicted felon can vote. So just wanted to share that piece of information and make sure that we spread the word. Please spread the word about that.
So Ms. Thorough, that was an excellent addition to what we just talked about, because that's something that I didn't even know. So I think that's important that we, one, like you said, spread the word, but just know the status of in general. Before we move on, we have a couple questions. One is from Facebook, and then the other is in our Q&A. And this second question comes from Danielle Davis, and it says, there is a lot of value in utilizing your voice, especially when you have a platform to amplify your message. As a school leader, I make sure that I post about the importance of voting to families and students. The more people you have connected to your message, the bigger difference you can make. And I thank you, Danielle, for that, because I think that is very true. You don't know how many people you'll encounter in a day. And I think that being in the school system or being, wherever, just in your regular profession in general, I think that you have conversations with people and you learn things about people. And I think that makes a difference. Of course, you don't want to ever persuade anybody on how to vote, but when you actually sit and listen to people's stories and things of that nature, I think it brings a different light to conversations as to why people either vote the way they vote, or for that matter, why they choose, not to vote, even though I think that everybody should vote. So that kind of brings us into our next question, which is, what are the issues affecting or that will affect us, particularly our young people? So again, what are the issues affecting or that will affect us, particularly our young youth? Our young people.
Pretty much all issues. I think the main thing is that a lot of our youth, like I said before, don't have the confidence to go into the booth, right? To go into the voting booth. A lot of them may think that something else is more important. Like I know when I first started voting, I was like, hold up, I can't leave work, or when do I leave work to go vote, or I need to make sure I stay at work because I can't leave work to go vote, or, I can't miss my classes. When I was at, Lincoln University, like trying to still figure it out, right? Like trying to figure it out and trying to weigh it as far as with other priorities and what's happening around the world. And I think it's every issue, whatever is bothering you right now as a person, it is a policy connected to it in some way, shape, or form. However you're feeling, something that you dislike about what's happening, Google it. They famous for using Google, right? Google it. I know that there is a policy connected to it. There is something that's connected to voting, that's connected to a feeling or a thought or something that you have or something that you're curious about or something that you may not even be sure about. So just make sure that you Google it. And another thing too is, with that, like not feeling confident about voting is an issue. The reason I'm saying this is a big issue because right now they're trying to find every way to make us feel uncomfortable with voting and using this power and knowing the power that we have. So for me, that's why I'm saying everything is an issue. I'm not going to pinpoint one thing, two things, or three things. Everything is an issue. How you're feeling is connected to some type of policy or connected to voting in some way, shape, or form. So believe that and do your research. It's okay to Google it. Like you Googled how to use your iPhone and find out what the new feature is, or when the next piece of technology is coming out, do the same thing about whatever issue that you have, and it'll become easier. And definitely use the advantage that some of us are voting by mail, or we get to look at the ballot beforehand. Use that to your advantage. I had to tell my little sister that for the primary, she called me like, who to vote for? And I said, I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm not telling you that. I think you need to Google. You got the ballot. I mean, you have the ballot in your hand and you have it for another 4 or 5 days. Research each person that's on the ballot, and that'll help you with coming up with your decision. So that for young people to understand that you want people who believe in what you believe in, who are connected to your morals or connected to the morals that impact you and your family. So that's what I would say. Everything is an important issue, if you ask me.
So you said the question was, what's the most important issue?
It was, what are the issues affecting or that will affect us?
Many. I think a big issue, now this is a little unconventional, but that's just what I do. I think something that's an issue that's affecting us is less political, but it's more in the family realm. And when I think to myself of why a lot of young people aren't interested in voting, we have to kind of go to our culture of how Black people, especially, treat younger people who are interested in what grown folk stuff. We can't, as when the kids are younger, say that this is grown folk business and and then later on expect them to still be interested. Because when I was in college, I noticed when I became an activist, a lot of people would say that, well, I had an interest in XYZ, and my mom and dad said that that's grown folk business and So I think a great issue that we are facing is a cultural shift in how we allow our kids to be involved in the process, because we can't wait till they're 18. When I look at some of the counterparts, the people that the kids have to, meet with in college, some of these white children, their families, I mean, they're in the debate teams, they are, model UN and, whatever, but they're getting the exposure, they're having the conversation, they're having the experience. And I think that when they get to the age of 18, their interest is at a higher level. I think we end up doing ourselves a disservice, medicine after death, when we're now trying to convince our kids as adults. And it's a lot harder because their mind is kind of made. So I just think a big concern is kind of do the prevention is better than cure method. And we work not only now, but continuously to get our children involved on November 4th. Stay with me. Because we can't keep making it a hot button topic every time it's an election. I swear it becomes redundant, because then now the votes are in, whoever you voted for won, and now people feel like, well, the civic duty has ended. It doesn't end that way. We can't infantilize and get excited and fantasize over these key moments. We have to show that it's an ongoing thing, an ongoing process, a continuous process, a baton passing process. So that's just where my mindset comes to as a major concern as a young adult. Woo woo.
Thank you. So we're going to move on for the sake of time. Crystal, if you could read the question from Facebook. Oh, Janelle, you have a question?
Before I do that,
Okay.
Janelle
Yeah,
had a question. Go ahead.
Actually,
Okay.
good evening, everyone. So this question is a follow along to a earlier statement that was made about young people not being excited, and then sort of what Chinedu was saying in terms of getting them interested. So this is from Monica South, and she said, since civics is so lacking in many school curriculums, how do parents begin voter education with their children, more specifically young teens? It can often be very hard to get them interested and excited. So they're looking for sort of tips in order to how to engage their children, and particularly the young folks, in the process.
I'm gonna make it very simple. 4 letters, HBCU. That's how you get them involved. Take your kids to our schools. And I say that because I'll use an example, just a funny example. When I think about civic engagement, the first time I saw Black civic engagement, it was in a different world. And that was a whole show about an HBCU. It was fictitious, but all of our HBCUs shared those values. So what I think what was being displayed in that show is that our education in any way, I don't care if you end up going to PWI, but our education comes from an HBCU no matter how you split it. So I think what parents can do is find the local HBCU, go on their websites and see what events, because you have organizations. Let's say, for example, you have, let's say the AKA, the local AKA chapter at the school is doing voter registration. And this is how you get your kids involved. And they can go and tell their friends, well, I went to this school and da-da-da. And then it becomes a chain effect. And this goes back to my prevention is better than cure. Then now when they're 18, they are so educated on the process that they might be educating you. So that's just my 2.5 cents.
I'm gonna let Ms. Loftin do, because I seen she went and got some tools for y'all. So I'm gonna let Ms. Loftin
I happened to be at home during a national pandemic.
figure out something too. I'm gonna let Ms. Loftin go.
You know, I just happened to be home during a national pandemic and may or may not have access to a bookshelf. So here's this. I'm gonna say the name of the books, but here's what I want to advise folks to do. We always talk about elections as though it's some sort of third-party strategy or tool that is not connected to us personally. And all the panelists so far we've all given examples, but I want to make it very clear. We all believe, I hope I'm speaking for all of us, that we have to make elections personal, period. You don't get people excited by telling them they have to vote. You don't get people excited by scaring them into voting. You don't get them excited by trying to convince them that it's their duty and our ancestors died. That is important information for us to know, but you cannot excite people that way. You have to motivate people and excite people because they feel like they have the power to make a difference in their community for something that they see. So unless you're making it personal, you're already losing. That starts by having the conversation, not what do you want to vote for, but what are the things that you care about? What is bothering you in your community? How do you wish your school acted different during a national pandemic, a global pandemic? What do you think it's fair that they are removing sorting machines from the post office? Do you think it's fair that they're pulling voting boxes off the corner at the street? Do you think it's okay that they're going to force people to take a vaccine? We just saw that there's new life on the cloud of Venus. How do you think that should be? Like, when we have conversations about actual pieces of reality in real life and then make the connection for people, do you think it's okay that the family, Tamika Palmer, just received a $12 million settlement because the city of Louisville murdered her daughter, Breonna Taylor, on March 13th. And over 6 months later, we are still waiting on a result in a conviction. Officers have not been indicted, have not been charged. And so that is a result of elections. And we all talk about it on social media, but we don't always make the connection. And so that requires education. Let me give you the education. The first one is what my boss, who I can't stand, because he's always trying to give me a book recommendation, but I love him, but he's always trying to give me a book recommendation. And I actually read this one. This is The Conscience of a Liberal by Paul Krugman. So I would advise, take a screenshot, go ahead, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is, this is one of my favorite ones. He did not give me this. This was called Democracy in Chains, and it's about elections. Y'all should get this one, Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean. Take a screenshot. There you go. These are all, let me tell you something. I don't care if your child is 10 or if they're 21. They can read all of these. Last one is Soul of a Citizen. And this is by Paul Loeb. These are all about democracy and elections. And it helps people understand the role that we play as citizens and the history of what elections have done, specifically to people of color, but really to Black people. Because let's be clear, when they started democracy, we were not included in that planning process. So I would encourage folks to make it personal. And then those are 3 book recommendations that I would advise people to read and to give to your kids.
So my comment would be similar to what everyone else said, right? Is about modeling it, right? Parents, we have to model it. And sometimes it's scary for us as Black people to model it because a lot of our generation after generation, we didn't have the confidence or the knowledge to understand what voting was or the power of voting or understanding the ballot, right? So for generations, we've all been intimidated by the ballot of understanding what that is. And let's face it, go back to history, and even now today, even working in education, literacy is an issue. Being able to read, being able to interpret, being able to analyze and critically think and understand what's on the ballot and how things are at stake is an issue and a challenge. And that's one reason why I joined Black Girls Vote, is because we believe that it doesn't matter if you have a PhD or a GED, right? Or if you don't have anything, that all of your vote matters, and everyone that surrounded us is what's most important. So I would say to families, don't just think about books, think about movies, think about the movies, think about the TV shows. I mean, everything right now is connected to power, literally. I mean, not to put a plug for 50 Cent for the show Power, but I mean, I feel like that's a great conversation starter for our children and what they're being exposed to, and something that we can relate to, right? The man that was living between both worlds. And there's still policy connected to everything. So based off of everything, how you feel, when you get upset about school lunch, when you get upset about certain things, or you don't understand and we're not sure, just being able to have a conversation. Your movie nights can be about things, or watching things on Netflix or on the free resources or things online, to understand that watching a movie, watching a TV show can be connected to politics. And then let's not forget about our babies. And then as a whole household, Miss Loftin went to go find something in her house. So I went to find something for you all. Right, Black Girls Vote, because we believe in the whole family is impacted, and we believe that women are connected to the whole family. When our boxes come back out, make sure everybody goes online to sign up for our party at the mailbox, because our party at the mailbox is designed not just for one person, but for the whole household. You know, we have our t-shirt, we have our posters that show that you believe in voting. We have all those things, and then we have a coloring book that's going to be designed for not just Baltimore, but 3 cities. We are going to Detroit and Philadelphia. So this coloring book is inspired so that everyone as a family can learn and be able to understand and see the power of voting, and to be excited about it, and so you can start talking about it at a young age. So I just want to let families know, like, you can start talking about it in a lot of ways. And once again, don't be intimidated by the words that are on the paper. There's ways to continuously learn. We understand that there are visual learners, that there are tactile learners, and all those things. And voting is the same way about voting. Being able to have conversations, watch videos, and listen and see and touch and draw and paint and all of those things, and music these days, everything. So just wanted to put that out there as an educational person, but also as a youth advocate and as a family advocate. So pretty much research, there's no end, there's no ceiling to learning about voting and to being excited about it. We believe in non-traditional excitement and engagement, and our party at the mailbox has definitely impacted households for everyone to understand that, hey, this is a family thing, it's a pride thing. And so start that conversation early and start showing that excitement and being prideful about it, and we'll be okay. We'll be okay soon. We're not okay right now, but we'll be okay soon.
Sis, I need you to send me that coloring book,
Yeah,
though. I need you to take, we need to work together on that so I can send that to my people across the country. We're going to take out Baltimore and put like Black Girls Vote or something. I'm going to hit you up after this. I need that coloring book.
I love it.
Okay, thank you so much. So just real quick, I want to make sure that we include our viewing audience. There's a couple of comments that have come in. One from Bianca Epson. She says that it's important that the lesson of value is encouraged. Value of your voice, value of your views, and the value in advocacy for self. She believes that when we encourage our youth to use their voices, must also be facilitated sufficient environments prior to that to teach the value of their voice. This starts by listening and creating those safe spaces that resonate with your younger generations. She believes that this level of emotional connectedness breeds a generation of enthusiastic voters. So constantly encouraging them and giving them that space that they feel comfortable in with using their voice. And then we have Jennifer Purnell Joe. She states that the issues that will impact our young youth is their role models in their lives. And so it's very important that as we are teaching our children to vote, that as my mother would say, I gotta lead by example. So we too, as parents and guardians, are the first teachers for our children before they even enter a school. So we as parents and as guardians, we need to teach them how to vote, take them by the hand when we go vote. When we're looking at our ballots, we need to talk them through the process of voting so that they'll understand it later on when it is their turn to vote. So that's what was in our chat and our audience. And we thank you for those comments. We thank you all. Breché?
Thank you, Crystal. So Ms. Loftin had to leave us, so we'll continue our conversation. It has been amazing so far, panelists. I am learning a lot. I'm like really enjoying the conversation. Something that you mentioned, Ms. Thrower, that really had me like, oh yes. When you mentioned about literacy, it is so important. Being in the school system, it's hard sometimes that you are teaching a 12th grader and they're reading on a 4th grade level. It can be overwhelming, especially since I teach chemistry, for example. So the vocabulary can be complex sometimes, and you bringing that up just made me think about the parents that come in sometimes and they don't have, their literacy skills are low as well. And so like you were saying with the families, it's important to have the conversations with everyone within the family. So I want to thank you for bringing that up. And you guys kind of talked about a couple of our questions already about the civic engagement because one of our viewers had mentioned that in her question. So I'll just go on to the next question. It still deals with being civically engaged, but I definitely want to get your input on that. And the question is, why do you think young people of all ages should become civically engaged?
I think why young people should get engaged is really like what we talked about in the last question of what issues affect young people. Because one of the things I often found when speaking with peers my age is when you ask them what they care about, it's obviously not going to be the same way as when you're explaining to someone that they want to talk about the tax code or all these issues that really don't pertain as much to young people. But when you ask young people, what they are concerned about, it's really like the real world issues, like the like reality, as what Tiffany mentioned in her last comment. And for me, when you then ask young people, why it's so important for them to engage, I think one of the most inspirational things for me was recently with all the marches and rallies. All of these rallies that were organized were not by adults. A lot of them were organized by people who were 15, 16 years old, 18-year-olds. And this was, for a lot of them, their very first time engaging in civic engagement, organizing people, getting community leaders together to speak at their events. And it was so inspirational to see that. And so for a lot of them, obviously this had to do with police brutality and racial injustice. And we saw this last year also with the climate change, and we still see this. And so a lot of it is really what hits at home with young people, and then how can they turn that into civic engagement? How can they turn that into organizing people like them with the same issues that they are caring about and rally to their cause?
Young people should, first of all, see history. See, y'all making me take y'all there. History will tell you all the truth that the lies of the present might like to omit. Here's the truth if you don't know it. young people should be civically engaged because all great change in the world has always come from young people. It's just that they got older. Go look up the ages of everybody that we praise. They were young.
Yes.
They grew and got older. So I think it's about time that our young people in this age stop doubting themselves. How old was John Lewis? How old was Bernard Sanders when he was marching with Martin Luther King? Or better yet, look at the people who've been in politics. How old was Joe Biden when he first got into politics? He's been doing it for almost 4 or 5 decades. He was a young person when he started. But I think what happens is because our Congress and our House are filled with people that to the eye look older, people my age don't understand that they were the youth at their time. And also being civically engaged, I think there's this idea, see, I'm yelling, the African in me is coming out. Being civically engaged, I always have to tell people, you find a space for yourself, okay? And that's why I like The Breakfast Club, nationally syndicated show, because Charlemagne the God, you have people who went to school in journalism and studied journalism up to the doctoral level who come to ask him questions, who didn't go to college at all. It's because he's civically engaged. Being civically engaged means being aware, doing what you believe and doing it your way. He may not be doing it in the schoolyard. He may not be doing it in Congress, but he likes radio. He likes being a host. He likes talking. So he uses what he has. Being civically engaged, look at Nina Simone, who was a singer. She was the voice of the movement at one point. So I tell my people, no matter what it is, if you're a STEM, you can be civically engaged and create engineering apps, if you like, about civic engagement. And I tell people this all the time. There's always a space. You just have to start. No matter what it is, you just have to start. And it doesn't matter about the amount of people that you reach. Like I say, it's a multiplier effect. Just get started. And it can get started by talking to your parents, talking to your neighbors, talking to your friends. Just do something. You never know who you will reach.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, my brother, for that reminder, right? I've worked with young people for years, and the reason I've done it is because, and it even like in the advocacy space, right? It's because I was a young person that people gave me the tools and they gave me the space to be able to understand advocacy, right? Even if it's running for SGA or making sure I vote for who I want to be SGA or voting or running for prom queen, right? To all of those things. Like, I think that just as parents and just even as just yourself as a young person, understanding your power and influence. Like for a very long time, I didn't understand my power of influence as just a person, no matter what age I was, especially at a young age. But it wasn't until I started running for things to be in certain positions, right? Or it wasn't until I started having conversations with people like, what, we can change that? Like, you know, what type of thing is that? Or my high school, we ran out of toilet paper. And guess what? We ran out of printing paper. We ran out of printing paper in my high school. Seriously, my junior and my senior year, it happened to us twice. And you know what? Guess what? I was on a debate team last minute and everything, but we organized, we were joking first with some of our teachers, but the next day after joking with my teachers, we organized a walkout. And we called the news, we set it up the whole thing. And that was my first time like really organizing and getting my peers, and was able to get 95% of the people in my high school, one of the biggest high schools in the city at the time, to do a walkout. And to be able to get the attention to say, hey, we need toilet paper. Hey, we need printing paper, because we all don't have books, right? We all can't take books home or bring it on the bus or that type of thing. So for me, starting at age 16 and then understanding the power of voting, my principal then ran for mayor, and he said, hey, I want the baddest people running my campaign, and where he let his students pretty much, you know, manage the campaign and be able to learn. So all that to say is that, and my parents always let me be a part of after school activities so I could see how things work and how things move. Or they never really made me shut up because they said I talk a lot, right? They never really made me shut up. They just say, if you want to talk about something, know what you're talking about, girl. Go ask, go find out. So same thing with my teachers. So just want to say that, and my peers, right, at the time, they didn't think that was cool. You know, I was the in-between girl. I was cool, I was popular, but at the same time, they was like, she's smart and she loud. She got a big mouth. right? But it was because they trusted me because I used my smart, loud mouth to advocate for everyone. Whether it was, okay, let's get everybody to school for attendance so now we can have a party in the middle of the day, you know, at this time or after school. And I think that parents just need to understand that they have influence and being able to let their children understand that even the cool things or the not so cool things or whatever that is, it's connected to voting and connected to civic engagement, right? So for me, that's what started me and even has me going now in my career as an adult, is that I was used to, I knew, and he said it helps you find the space, right? But I think that we're in a space where, you know, you create the space. Parents, help your child create a space, right? Help them and communicate with them, with their teachers, or help them create a space. It's not about finding a space or finding a table to be set to sit at. Help them create a table, right? For other people to come sit at, or create a space for them to be civically engaged or to be able to challenge their thoughts and how they feel in their thoughts. And to me, that's what's most important, is creating that space. And I was allowed as a young person to create that space and then to find a way to create my space even when joining other organizations and even throughout my career and advocating for others. So I say civic engagement is all about creating a space that fits you, but that's also about influencing and advocating for other people and for the things that matter to you the most.
Thank you all. That was excellent. And again, you covered my next question, which was talking about youth-led protest and how that can be channeled into civic action. So excellent. Thank you so much. I want to wrap up our Q&A session with just one last question. If you all could tell us, how are the platforms that you're using or that committees that you may be involved in, how is that being conducted around the world? So, you know, what are you doing to help our youth get excited about voting, or if they don't know about voting, just wanting to learn more and be more engaged? So we can just go around and just let us know what type of platform you're on or what committees you're on and how that is being used in today to help our youth get excited about voting.
So I know with the organization I'm in, I didn't mention it in the bio, but it's a recently formed organization. It's called BCY Speaks. And this organization was recently formed over the summer after a lot of these protests and rallies. And as I mentioned, it was all these young people that made it. And so we came to a consensus as to how we can take this outside of the rallies and turn this into action. And so we formed this organization, and with this, we've been able to register young people in the Baltimore County area. We've been able to engage students as to how they start, kind of like Mr. Chinedu mentioned, like to start somewhere. And this is what we emphasize to young people, because they always feel overwhelmed with starting. And so we kind of give them that guidance, that advice of, okay, here's how you can start this. Here's how you can do this in your schools, in your communities. And that's what we're really doing, is getting people outside of the particular organizations that do these civic engagement. So like students who are just not in any clubs, but want to be active, how do we get them to that point? And so that's what we're doing in our organization.
With Black Girls Vote, we believe in partnership. We realized and we know that we can't do it all on our own. So the reason that we've been able to register over 16,000 people is because we've been engaged with other partners. And I would say when it comes to young people, of course, we've partnered with Baltimore City Public Schools and other youth organizations and mentoring programs and organizations that serve young people, and that's connected to education, where we've went into schools and we've done non-traditional engagement opportunities to teach them about voting, or to encourage them or empower them about understanding voting and just being able to understand the power of their voice. I would say that we've partnered with organizations that mean that's a big deal to people, you know, like you guys, like AKA, and like my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We've also partnered with Baltimore Votes. We've partnered with Women League of Voters. We've partnered with, like I said, a number of organizations in the community, like the Movement Team. We're partnering with Downtown Locker Room of Baltimore. We're partnering with a lot of organizations throughout the city to make sure that, to make sure that everyone knows and everyone understands that it's nothing to be intimidated by, right? We've done a lot of other initiatives initiatives too. Like we've set up voter registration at the Beyonce concert and get information, right? We've done it, we've done the polls to the polls. If you guys understand what that means, right? We've done that type of stuff to make sure that we connect with everyone. And right now, like I just shared about our Party at the Mailbox initiative, we're so excited and happy that we'll be taking it to 2 other cities. But the Party at the Mailbox initiative is all about making sure that we touch everybody, no matter what age you are. And then even with our first round on our primary election, we had a youth organization, Joy Baltimore, and we worked with Stand Up Baltimore to help make our boxes and pack our boxes so that we could distribute them and be able to impact households, whole households, to make sure they got out to vote and to have, to be excited about voting. So we believe in partnership. So we're trying to partner with everyone and as many people as possible. We've definitely partnered with like a lot of the community schools in Baltimore to work to make sure that we were able to touch young people and do some webinars and just do some pop-ups to be able to give some incentives. We've done a lot of things. We did a Tumblr Tumblr initiative not too long ago where we went to every high school, we set them up, we took them actually to the polls, we set up with DJs, we did the whole thing, the whole 9 to say, hey, we're here, get excited, register. And matter of fact, we're gonna take you to the polls to go vote right now. We did that for early voting last year. So we're trying any and every way that we can to touch our young people. And we're working and collaborating with as many organizations and people as possible to say, hey, let's do this and let's realize that your vote matters, your voice matters, and you matter as a person, and what you believe in and how you feel matters. So we're trying every way that we can. And if anybody's interested in collaborating with us, the next go round, like I said, the initiative that we're doing with the Party at the Mailbox boxes, we're still looking for some more young organizations or young people, not just necessarily young, everybody, right, to come partner with us and maybe help pack our next 2,000 of boxes that'll be going out for the general election for this for election 2020.
So I just want to say, I wouldn't be me if I didn't plug in this real quick. Shout out to the greatest institution in the world, Morgan State University. Taught me everything I know. I don't speak without speaking on the illustrious national treasure. So we're going to shout out Morgan State one time. What I will say is what I'm doing, and this is to show that what we're all doing is different. I'm not, I won't say I'm a big voter advocate, meaning I'm a part of an organization. But the little thing that I could do is I could avail myself to a program like this. I know I have a following on Facebook and Instagram, so I share these type of things and I get my people involved, and I do a lot of direct to people talking. It may not be on an official capacity, but I think one of the most important things to do is to avail yourself to these different spaces. Let me just say this. First of all, to be on a call where like the vast majority are all women, Black women, shout out to that. That's what I love. Because sometimes it's very important that we Black men, rather than just continuing to try to lead every single thing, is that we join the spaces where our Black women are in charge. So I'm glad to be here in assistance too, because that's a part of this mission as well. We have to try all the ways that are unconventional, that are different, that are new, that will inspire these youth that we want to vote, because we got to be that example too. And that's what I try my best to do, is to be the best example as I can and to be real. And what I also do is, because I'm an educator deep down inside, 4 generations of educators in my family, what I do is I like to relate whatever I can to what the people that I talk to, the youth, already know. So I got to be up on what they watching. They watching P-Valley. I got to know what that is, because I got to be able to say, this voting is like this scene. And you have to put it, and that's why I think, and I'm gonna keep saying it, people like Cardi B getting involved is important, is because she can reach more people than the local NAACP chairman. That's just the truth. That's the reality we're in. And we have to be able, as people, if we want to win, because politics, somebody said this on CNN the other day, politics at the end of the day is about winning. And if we want to win in the most legitimate way possible, we have to reach those who are reaching our young. And I think Michelle Obama's doing a great job. I saw that thing that she's doing with Kevin Hart. That's how it's going to get done. And I think we're in a new time, a new political climate of where those type of PR attempts are very important, and they work. So that's what I be doing. in my little niche, I do the best that I can, and I am open and available. I am available to do whatever I can do to help, you know, educate the youth, because I'm the example that, yes, we are invited to the table. So I want to reach out and invite more people. So whenever y'all need me, and I need me one of them little, the little boxes. I'm pointing like you can see me. I need the little box that you got, my sister. I want that box. You know what I'm saying? It's very important.
Online, the link should go live within the next 2 weeks. So you're gonna have to register online. You have to keep an eye out. Follow us on social media and everything. Keep an eye out. And I would be remiss, because you mentioned the HBCUs, I would be remiss to not say that Black Girls Vote also works with collegiate college students. And right now we have about 3 or 4 different chapters. And we do have a chapter at Morgan State University, which was our first chapter.
Come on, come on.
So, of course, and I'm just waiting now to try to make sure I get it at Lincoln University, the first HBCU, you know, because right now we have it at the other orange and blue, MSU. But, you know, we'll talk about that another day. But we're going to get it, you know, make it happen at some other HBCUs. And we have chapters at like American University also. So it's not just HBCUs. It's growing. So yeah, I want to make sure.
Thank you so much, panelists. This was an excellent conversation. I myself have been blown away. Your responses have been so engaging and informative, and I just thought the whole thing was great. We're going to move on to Ms. Crystal Staples, and then towards the end, if there is time for other questions, because we do have some questions from people, we'll try to come back around and get those questions. But again, thank you so much, and we greatly appreciate you for spending your evening here with us tonight. Crystal?
Thanks again for all of you who have come out and joined us, and for our audience members that are out there with your questions. Keep filling up our chat with our Q&A with your questions, please. And also I'll ask if there's students or teachers or faculty members or those that are affiliated with those organizations, would you please put in a chat exactly what school you're representing? And we're going to track you down. We're going to keep track of your progress and getting others to register to vote. And so with that, I'll say this, that the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is leading the charge with Michelle Obama. We've partnered with When We All Vote, which is, of course, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. And we're all on a mission to change the culture around voting and ensuring that our communities are ready and registered to vote in 2020. And so, as all our panelists have stated, it is important that we reach out as far as we can to our youth and our voters of all ages, really, to make sure that they not only register, but that they also come out and exercise their voice. And so with that said, we, as the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, we've launched a voters registration challenge for all the high schools in our area. But in order to participate, we need to know what school you're representing. And we need our students and our teachers to come together and be trained utilizing the When We All Vote training method. And so I'm going to show you real quick just how we do it, and how you can do it as well at your school. Video, please.
22 million teens will turn 18 before the 2020 elections. Young voters will be more influential than ever before, and it is up to us to make sure all our voices are heard.
Even though we voted in record numbers in 2018, we still have a lot of work to do. Only 1 in 3 of us cast a ballot in 2018. We can and must do better.
No matter what career students pursue in the years ahead, they're certain to be the next generation of citizens who will shape our country's future. It's up to us to help them harness this power.
That is why we are working with When We All Vote to help students and educators register every eligible member of our school community.
Today, we're going to walk you through the steps it takes to help get your school registered and ready for the polls. Download this action plan at our website.
First, you got to build your team. Text your friends, talk to your favorite teachers, and put together a group of people you can count on.
We suggest having certain roles in every team. Most importantly, starting with 2 captains to lead your school's efforts. And build a team around them that looks like the school's student body.
Now, pick when you want to register students. This should occur regularly throughout the year in classrooms, on teams, and in clubs. But you'll want to pick 5 to 6 days to really create energy and enthusiasm around voting. We call these days of action.
These days should rally your school to register as many students as possible and set the example for younger kids who look up to us. So put together a timeline with big dates.
Take a photo of the QR code and the action plan, and that will take you right to our online registration page. If your state doesn't offer online registration, that's okay. Go back to the state guidelines to learn how to get a paper registration in your state.
And don't forget to let everyone know ahead of time what supplies you need, like a driver's license or a social security number. After you register students, whether it's just one or the whole class, let When We All Vote know how you're doing.
Take a photo of the QR code at the end of the action plan and share how many new voters you registered, send highlights and photos. We want to share your success with the rest of the country.
And celebrate your work every time. Do things like
announce new voters on morning announcements.
Host pep rallies calling out new voters.
Put pictures of new voters around the school.
Because when we all vote,
when my school votes,
we can change the world.
Yes, we can change the world. And so I want to show you just the QR code that they mentioned. You can cue my next link, please. Okay, so that QR code there is important. And honestly, it works. And if you take your phone and just hold it up to that QR code, you don't have to take a picture. You just hold it there and you tap on it. Follow the instructions on your phone. And that will allow you, first of all, as Ms. Thrower today mentioned, it allows you to check your status to ensure that you are in fact registered to vote. Because you know, sometimes we move from one place to the next and we forget to, we change our address, but we forget to update our voter registration information. So even if you do something as simple as moving from one apartment to the next, to another apartment in the same building, you have to go back and get and update your registration information. Perhaps you started school at grandma's house and then you moved and you went to mom's house because now you're grown and you're at mom's house now. Those changes are important for you to update your registration information. But you definitely, this allows you to check your status. It allows you to register yourself. And you know what else it does? It allows you to register others. It's so easy to utilize our technology that we have, these little cute phones that we have. We can register ourselves and we can also help others register to vote. And then we can always pick a group. When they told us in the video that, you know, you decide on if you're going to be a team captain, if you only need to have like maybe 3 to 5 people that you want to help register to vote. Utilize your own networks. You don't have to know the people that I know, but just the people that you know. Through any platform that you utilize, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook, the TikTok, whatever you use as a platform to communicate with your network, you could use that to touch bases with the folks in your small group and get them registered to vote. And I tell you, if you register them to vote and then you encourage them to register 3 to 5 more people, it will go on and on and on, and we can truly make sure that everyone is ready to and registered to vote in this next election. Okay, so that QR code is very important. Let's go to our next slide. And so we have a lot of help here in Baltimore County. The Baltimore County Board of Elections gave us this information, and one of the things that was brought up in our panelist discussion was that we need to know the ballot from top to bottom. It's not just about the president's election, it's about our local and our state representatives. We need to know who is going to touch our daily lives. We need to know who they are, because those are the people that are going to be representing us. So we need to know if they're on the ballot this time around, who they are. So when Tenne and Tiffany and some of the others talked about knowing who the candidates are, doing your research, don't be afraid to Google them. There's some information there, the different parties that are represented here in the state of Maryland. There's some the links and information links for them that you can look them up. Know who you're voting for. Know who represents you and have the same like mind as you do. Okay, the next slide. Here are some takeaways. Of course, all Marylanders are encouraged to vote by mail, but Marylanders may choose to vote in person during the early voting or on election day. So even if you ordered a mail-in ballot, you can still go and register to vote. If you change your mind, you can still register to vote, or actually, I'm sorry, you can still go and vote, walk in, okay? And so here is, you can vote by mail or you can vote during the early election. So this is just telling you different ways that you can vote. The deadline for you to register to vote is the 13th of October. And the deadline for you, for those that are going to actually mail in your ballot, is the 20th of October. Okay, next slide. This talks about the election and how to will be conducted on Tuesday, November the 3rd. We have several options here. Again, you can early vote between the 22nd of October to the 2nd of November. You can vote by mail. And want to make sure that your ballot is postmarked on or before Tuesday, the 3rd of November. You can vote by drop box. And I have another slide that's going to tell you where the 42 drop box sites will be. We just got that in yesterday, okay? But that you have to have it dropped in a box no time after 8 p.m. on Tuesday the 3rd. The boxes will be locked after 8 p.m., okay? And then the next note just says starting Thursday, October the 1st, the drop boxes will be in place, okay? You can go to the next slide. Next slide, okay. And so here are the dates and reminders for your voter registration, voters registration, and for volunteers. Of course, there's a big push now for poll workers and for election judges, okay? So if you want to volunteer to be to work the polls, or you want to be an election judge. I know for me, I'm an election judge, and so I've already got my little email to tell me when I have to go for the training. Yes, there's a 2 to 3 hour training block where they show you how to work and do everything while you're in the polls, okay? So that you're able to help the folks that come to vote. So if you want to do that as a 17-year-old, you can come in and help us at the polls, and you can also help us in the, during the election time, okay? Our next slide. And so these are just some links I wanted you to have for yourself, so you can get go back to those videos that I showed you, and or the When We All Vote, AKA connection to that. And our next slide. These are the Dropbox locations that were given to me yesterday from our very own Baltimore County Board of Elections representative, Ms. Dena Williams, and she will be our guest at our next webinar on the 22nd of September. And this information is what she shared hot off the press, that there'll be 13 secure boxes, there'll be 11 early voting locations. And as the time goes on, if they add more, then we'll update as the webinars go on. Our next slide, please. These are the early voting centers. Again, they've extended these hours, these dates, the 26th of October to the 2nd of November from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can go to these sites. And they say that if you want to early vote, you can go to any of the early voting locations, okay? All right. So now that pretty much closes us out. I'm going to turn it back over to Breché to go ahead and find some of those good questions in our chat, and so we can answer those questions and then go on to our panelists.
Thank you, Crystal. So I just had one question that I saw besides people saying how awesome this was, which I totally agree with. The question was for our panelists, what are your thoughts on voter suppression? And do you have any advice as to how to overcome that?
Suppression in general is a real thing, okay? I'm trying not to get too biblical, okay? I'm trying not to. But suppression isn't new, is my point. It isn't new. And there's gonna always, this is what I always tell people, I'm very optimistic. There will always be a new tactic to suppress voters, but there will always be a new opportunity for us to overcome it every single time. It doesn't matter if that's marching or lobbying, whatever, there will always be an opportunity for us to get rid of that. And the greatest opportunity for that is voting. And that's where it goes back to sometimes the people who are voting are representing those who aren't. And that's why it's very important that when we go in that box, that we remember that we are, like Martin Luther King said, tied together by a garment of mutual destiny. So it's very, very pivotal that those who are voting remembers that. But voter suppression is disgusting. We see it in more ways than not in different states, and they're getting more creative and they're getting more blatant. They're getting more blatant with the suppression. And I think that's why we are getting more blatant with how much we feel it's important for us to vote, for our voices to be heard. And I truly, truly, truly believe when it comes to voter suppression, I think just like anything else, these are things we gotta tell our kids and our children that this is a picture of 1965 when women were able to vote, or 19 whatever, when black men were able to vote. And this is what they're doing to you today. It's not, I think it's very important that we bridge that yesterday is not that far away. And that the same people who made those terrible laws yesterday, they are revealing those tactics today through their children, through people who wanna, push visceral hatred. So I think it's very, very important that we connect that this is real. I think sometimes Black history is always relegated to yesteryear. No, 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 it's happening now. And when we see our kids talking about Black Lives Matter, because that's their fight now, and Breonna Taylor, because that's their fight now, we have to tie that into, this is why voting is important. Because that person, that attorney general who was not, who did not indict, well, he was voted in. So it's like, these are this is how we turn it into what is interesting them, what they're talking about. So that's what I have to say about voter suppression. It's terrible, but it's a reality. Suppression has been there since the days of Jesus Christ himself being crucified, if you read the Bible. I'm just saying. But then that leads for an opportunity for us to educate. And that's just my last.
Thank you so much. Ms. Thrower, can you finish us up?
Yeah, I just want to agree that it's real, and it's not different from before. If anything, it's worse than before, right? Because we've waken up and we've shown how much power we have from before. And so for me, it's more so about everything else that we've been talking about the whole night, right? It's understanding our values and being able to have conversations and to not be intimidated by it. The reason why voter suppression is real is because people are intimidated by the power that we have, the power of influence that we have, the amount of influence that we have, and because of our beliefs and our morals. And just for everybody to realize, like, voter suppression isn't new, and it's not something by itself. It's the same thing when we talk about when we talk about the educational system and how we say that wasn't built for us. It's not built for us. The same thing when we think about economics and we think about like why it's so hard for us to get approved for certain loans, or for us to have certain to have access to a lot of different things, or to buy a home, or any of those things, right? That voter suppression is tied to all those things. We talk about food access, and we talk about like why there's grocery stores in certain areas. When we talk about like why the food may cost a different price in certain grocery stores in certain neighborhoods versus others. It's all, and why bus routes and transportation routes take one way and don't go to certain neighborhoods or take certain routes, right? All of those things. And when we talk about like why certain things are being streamed for us to have certain access, when we talk about internet access, and we talk about what things are being streamed live and why we have to pay for certain things and not pay for other things, right? All of those things are connected to voter suppression, because all of those things are connected to policy. Now, all those things are connected to people, real life people like us who have who claim or seem like they have another level of power, where they wouldn't have that amount of power if we didn't use it, if we didn't use our voting power, and if we didn't hold people accountable. And so voter suppression to me is very real. And we have to realize that we have to continuously hold people accountable, and not just on election, not just during election and voting season, but at all times. And holding people accountable just doesn't mean holding our elected officials accountable, but it's holding ourselves and holding our family and our friends and our employers accountable also. So that's what voter suppression is all about when I think about it, when I want us to think about that as we move on.
Thank you so much. We are going to have Ms. Janelle Herring wrap us up. Thank you again, panelists, so much for your contribution this evening. Janelle.
Thank you, Breché. And as they say, time flies when you're having fun. This was an amazing, engaging, and wonderful conversation. And I didn't expect anything less, because all of our panelists, you brought the fire. And so thank you to all that have joined us this evening. I would be remiss if I didn't plug that we do have a webinar scheduled for September 29th that talks about voter suppression. So this was great how we ended the conversation, but do know that it will continue on September 29th. Also, next Tuesday, which is September 22nd, is National Voter Registration Day. And in honor and in effort of that day, we will be having another webinar. So if you have friends and family who missed today's webinar, you can watch it again on Facebook Live, but we will be having the same discussion next Tuesday, September 22nd at the same time on National Voter Registration Day. And then we will close out this series and get us all ready and armored and ready to inundate the polls on starting October 26th, but the 29th, that is a very important topic, and it deals with voter suppression. So I thank each and every one of you for taking the time out on your Tuesday evening and spending it with us. And we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday and beyond. So thank you, everyone, and have a great evening. Thank you.